Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Adult Chair on rashpixel.fm. I'm Pete Wright, and I'm here, as always, with Michelle Chalfant. Hello, Michelle.
Hey, Pete.
Is it actively raining where you are, like knocking portions of the eastern seaboard into the ocean? Because that's what it seems like from our internet connectivity issues today.
Yes, I think that Tennessee is washing into the ocean.
It's becoming more and more coastal.
Yeah, it's crazy because it has been raining for about 7 straight days. And it's been unbelievably wet here. Like, not even one full day of sunshine. It's just rain, 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 rain.
Well, we've swapped. I'm here in Portland, Oregon. It is lovely. It is the brightest of bright sun. It is a crystal clear blue sky day. So I'll enjoy it for you. I'm soaking in the vitamin D.
Thank you.
This week,
I haven't had any of that.
This week we have a very special guest on the show to help us better understand how we can discover hope, even as we approach the most serious challenges in our lives with grace. Before we dig into that, I need you to head over to theadultchair.com and learn more about the show. You can subscribe for free. You can sign up for our mailing list. Make sure you get a little reminder every week when the show goes live. Or, of course, you can search for us in iTunes or your podcast app of choice. Just search for The Adult Chair. It'll pop right up. You can join the conversation on Facebook or Twitter and call us 931-463-3813. Leave us a voicemail and get your voice on this show. We would love to hear your thoughts. Now, old business out of the way. We are so excited to welcome our guest today. Karen Campion is a holistic therapist who blends inner child work with a variety of alternative and holistic techniques and has a wonderful background and experience with lots of lessons we can learn from. Karen, welcome to the Adult Chair.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Michelle, can you set up your relationship with Karen for us? Why is this a conversation that you felt you wanted to share with our listeners?
I have known Karen for over 10 years. We met more as colleagues in the beginning, and over the course of 10 years became very good friends. Karen and I do a lot of the same kind of work, just in a different states. About 4 or so years ago, she had come down with a chronic illness and lived with chronic pain. And I witnessed this for the last few years. And I saw her transform and go through this with such grace. And I just really felt like it was such a profound experience of healing for her. And I wanted to have her on to give other people hope that might be living also with chronic pain or illness. That's why I wanted to have her on today. So welcome, Karen.
Thank you, Michelle.
So I thought it would be wonderful just to maybe share your story with our listeners.
Like you said, it was about 4 years ago. I had a practice at that time, but I all of a sudden became ill, and it didn't get better quickly. In fact, it just kept getting worse. And there were endless symptoms. I ended up really, truly being in bed for, I would say, over 3 years with very little walking. If I drove my car, occasionally it would be on cruise control. So I could, my legs didn't work very well, very, very weak. I had many symptoms of numbness and tingling, and my eyes didn't track well. And there were times when I fainted and times when I thought I was having a heart attack. It's just strange symptoms. And I tried everything. I went to many, many people that would help me get through and help me walk for the day or give me information that I needed to get through it, but it was never lasting. It seemed like I was missing something that could heal me more long term. I truly think it was when I found the inner child work that everything started to click, and all the modalities I had been using and learning to try and heal myself started to work better because I had this foundation of this inner child cheer work that we do.
So were you technically, I mean, I know you went to many, many doctors, but did you ever get a true diagnosis to what was going on with you?
No. In fact, in the beginning days, they thought it was MS, and I went through one MRI, and it turned out negative, and I was supposed to get a spinal MRI because I had this symptom where my spine would shake all the time. And I just never ended up doing that MRI because I think I had seen roughly 14 doctors over the course of a year. And I just decided I'm going to try alternative and really diving into the emotional work. I had been doing emotional work for a long time, but never got to the depth of the childhood wounds until the chair work came in, and learning about the inner child was really a different experience.
When you say chair work, you're talking child, adult, adolescent kind of work?
Yes, sitting in the chairs, experiencing what your child is really saying, what the adolescent is doing, and bringing in the adult for the healing part when we're working with the child.
The physical symptoms that you're experiencing, would you say that they're linked somehow to the emotional part of who we are, or that, again, that inner child that has the true feelings and true needs?
That is what I found, is that it seemed to me that we hear that a lot, that our physical symptoms are a result of an emotional imbalance, and I believe that's almost always true. For me, it for sure was. I think, they say that if you're a sensitive person, and I'm a sensitive person, when you're younger, if you experience many traumas, you'll have eventually have to deal with that somewhere down the road. It may show up as a chronic illness for you. So I know people that have chronic illness that would benefit immensely from inner child work. And then doing the trauma work with that.
Can you both talk a little bit about that? Because this is the part that's absolutely fascinating to me, Karen. We a few weeks ago talked about EFT, and Michelle introduced me to EFT, and I became a complete numbskull on the show. It was a real shining moment in my broadcast history. I was a blithering idiot for just a few minutes, but it was amazing to me the way EFT uncovered the physical manifestation of an emotional blockage. But this was on such a minuscule level compared to what you were talking about, to dealing with eye tracking issues and not your legs not working as well. I'm fascinated by this connection between emotional and physical symptoms, and I think even though we have heard it over and over again, I don't think there's a belief for many people in that connection, and they live with the pain without really exploring the emotional problems.
That really surprises me because it seems so intuitive to me, but I understand that there are people that haven't made that link yet. And that's what the beauty about having an experience with EFT. It can be a pain in your knee, and you do a round or two of tapping on the meridians, and all of a sudden that pain is gone. And we know the pain was physical, but we're tapping for emotional reasons. So it's, these techniques do uncover the truth about that. When you go into the inner child, there are several techniques we can talk about, but one of them, just off the top of my head, is called matrix reimprinting. And if you are working with the child, let's say age 4, and they had a bad experience, it could be something simple which put that child into trauma because they're sensitive. So let's say they're stealing a cookie from the cookie jar and their dad had told her not to, or something. So this child experiences some sort of shock to her system, and we would call it maybe even to her energetic system. And if I'm working with someone's 4-year-old child who experienced that, I can press points on the heel of the body that release what's called shock, if you study Donna Eden energy medicine, and that child will come out of that state. So what I'm saying is you can even go into these younger parts of ourselves, help release trauma through, EFT or these other techniques. And they experience a big difference, and their lives change. And this works very well for people, of course, with emotional issues, but even like panic. You can get someone very quickly out of panic and stable by using some of these other modalities with the inner child work.
Karen, is there maybe an example that you can give to us of somebody that you've worked with that was experiencing some kind of panic or trauma that you've done your work with and had some really great results? Is there an example you can give us?
I currently have a client who has panic and has struggled with panic for about 3 months, and for many weeks wasn't leaving her home. She shakes. She has a long-term therapist of 5 years, and she cries all the time, and she just can't get herself together enough to go to work. So she's not sleeping at night. She's, living with a great deal of pain. She had one session with me, and she was significantly better, started to sleep through the night. The shaking that she was experiencing was way, way down. She was still occasionally crying when someone would bring up the trauma that caused this. So we worked another 1 or 2 sessions, and she no longer has panic. She's not shaking. She's sleeping through the night. She's feeling much better.
Well, I think you may have buried the lead on that one. You worked with her 1 or 2 sessions, and she's sleeping through the night and doesn't experience panic?
Right, 1 or 2 sessions. She was already sleeping better and better, and by the 3rd session, she was completely sleeping.
That's
unbelievable.
The thing I'm really most fascinated by this, and this is I think this is illustrated by her story in just 2 or 3 sessions, but also by yours. What is it like after dealing with such pain, such trauma for so long, to realize that there is such hope available so quickly? Like when you first make that connection that, oh my goodness, I'm now doing EFT or some of these other techniques that you can talk about, and I'm making an immediate substantive difference on my life. What is that experience like?
It's indescribable. I think, being sick for so long, I lived really in hopelessness for so long. And that's why I think I don't want to dismiss the inner child work at all, because I was doing some of those techniques and they weren't 100% working for me, or they weren't lasting. And so I think the combination is sometimes really powerful for people. It's to have hope after you've been living so long hopeless is unbelievable. And I would like to say for your listeners who have chronic illness that the truth is, and I really believe this is true, that you're not ill because you did something wrong, God is angry with you, or you're a bad person. Because I know that's what we think when we're ill. We're trying to figure it out, and we just can't believe how we got in that situation. But I see it more as, you're learning to love yourself more, you're changing, you're growing, you just need some new ways to get through your life in a happier, better way. And once you have hope, you become an entirely new person again. It just takes one thing that gets you out of hopelessness and gets you on the trail again to feeling better and having hope that you can live a really good life.
I think what's really important is for people to, with any sort of illness, to pause instead of running to the doctor immediately. Just to pause and ask yourself, what could this pain be about? What could the headache even be about? I think our body is so wise, and if we can sit with it, sometimes we get answers. I know for myself, I had plantar fasciitis. And
that's the
so
worst.
Bad. It is the worst. And it, out of left field, I didn't even know what it was. And I this is years and years ago. Of course, the doctors had told me that it would never go away. So I'm buying all those Dansko shoes and all those big giant shoes. They're not so pretty. But I found that I realized that I was afraid to, I think we were in the middle of one of our moves, and I did not want to walk forward in my life. I wanted to stay put. And the moment I got in touch with my fear of moving, it was like, I think I had it for about six months or so. It was almost overnight that my pain went away and I threw the shoes away, and I haven't had it since. But I had to get in touch with the emotional issue around moving and walking forward in my life, and the fear that was wrapped around that. And the same thing happened prior to me moving to Tennessee. I had 2 knee braces on. I don't know if you remember this, Karen, but I had double knee braces. I could barely move my knees, and we were moving to Tennessee. And I didn't want to. I was scared again. That had come up, and I actually went to a chiropractor in North Carolina that also did some healing work and emotional work, and she laughed at me and she said, "What do you think this is about?" I said, "I don't know." She said, "This is all emotional." And we worked through the emotional issues again because that was a bigger move. That was moving to another state away from family and friends. We got in touch with all that. I was able to touch all the emotions underneath it. And I mean, I was ready to go to an orthopedic surgeon because I could barely walk. And within 45 minutes of her session, I took off the knee braces and never had a problem since. Our bodies are definitely linked with our, in my opinion, with our emotional body. Our physical body is linked with the emotional body.
We tend to repeat patterns in our lives. So, it's interesting, when I was sick for so long and I couldn't walk, that was really a big pattern from my childhood. I had a hard time walking even as a little girl for, unknown reason. I don't know. I could never keep up. I would always get in trouble. If we went on a trip with the family, I'd be, a half a block behind or a block behind, and I would get in trouble. So obviously this started a long, long time ago, that it's the pattern sort of repeats until you really get to the healing of it and the learning of whatever was going on.
And probably, I'm guessing, as a child, when you weren't walking, nobody stopped you and said, what's going on? Why aren't you, you probably got yelled at. So, in other words, shoved whatever feeling you had coming up, you had to shove it down and not right. Be in touch with it. And it sounds like it just kind of erupted 4 years ago. All of these old wounds started coming up for you all at once.
Yeah, and I think the little 4-year-old girl who had trouble with her legs when I was younger was not wanting to move forward way back then because it was pretty traumatic, And so these things can start really young, and you can then get repeat patterns your whole life until you essentially get the message or heal it in some way.
That is just amazing.
Okay, Karen, let's talk a little bit about allergies because Pete has a corn allergy.
Well, there's a message there somewhere.
Yeah, I have the same belief about allergies, but what is your opinion even on an allergy? And so many of us suffer from allergies. So whether it be a food allergy or seasonal allergies, and
let me just say that the value of this conversation will only be for me if you can get me so I can eat corn chips again.
I bet Karen could.
Well, I'm going to go in a different direction, I think. I think we're all becoming a little bit more allergic than we ever have before. I think our environment is really toxic, and the food we eat often is toxic, and heavy metals, and our bodies are sort of riddled with a lot of things that many years ago they weren't. And I think our bodies are starting to struggle with the immune system struggling, and we're creating more and more allergies. I happen to be sensitive to just about everything right now. I can't even wear jewelry because I have a quote-unquote allergic reaction to it. So I think there's that whole realm where we're becoming allergic to things easier, in general. And then there's also messages, I think, sometimes with allergies.
Yeah, I mean, please. I had awful seasonal allergies growing up, starting at age 12, and used to get allergy shots and things like this. And all of a sudden, it just stopped. But I know that as I did my emotional work over all these years, they started improving little by little by little. And I went from stopping the allergy shots probably in my late 20s to 30s to taking lots of Benadryl every day. And in the last 2 years, I have not taken anything. And it blows my mind to walk out and see the green all over the cars. And I'm like, how is it that I'm don't even have a little bit of a runny nose? And I really believe, I believe what you're saying for sure. I think our food is very, that's a whole other podcast. But in addition to that, I really do believe that even our emotional wounding does throw off our body in a way so it makes us react to itself and create allergies to various things like a beautiful flower outside. I mean, we should not be allergic to a beautiful flower or grass or things like this or beautiful trees. And I do think that it is linked oftentimes to the emotional body being out of balance or
a specific incident. Sometimes a specific incident happens and that food is there while you go through a quote-unquote trauma or an emotional upset, and then that becomes the food that you're quote-unquote allergic to or having a problem with. And there are people that also say you can be allergic to someone else. So your body tends to. I actually had a client who came in with hives all over, and I was, checking out everything with her, and intuitively I asked her, are you allergic? Do you have a reaction to your daughter-in-law? Because she had been talking about some people in her life, and she said, described how difficult it was being around her daughter-in-law. We did some sort of balancing with that, and her hives went away. So she had hives for many, many days. So I think, the emotional realm can trigger all kinds of things. And we sometimes call them allergies. Allergic
to that just blows my mind. I feel like I could think of a whole bunch of people I'm allergic to now.
Oh, yeah. But, the body wants to, or the body somehow wants to defend itself against that person. And again, if we don't have good boundaries, sometimes it's the kind of thing like hives or runny nose or whatever.
Back pain, like lower back pain, shoulder pain. It's where you carry your stress.
Yeah.
I feel like we could also talk for many hours on this conversation.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. This was just the highlight. But I really just wanted people to have some kind of hope and even maybe some direction of if you're dealing with the chronic pain, where's the hope? And Karen, I think that you've kind of provided that for some people today.
Sometimes it's looking a little bit deeper into your issues, or your past. Sometimes that's the answer to chronic illness.
That is just wonderful. And I hope that as we continue to have this ongoing conversation, Karen, I hope you'll come back and join us again in the future.
Yes, would love to. Thank you very much.
We sure appreciate you joining us. Where would you like people to go to learn more about you and your work?
I have a website. It's www.karencampion.com. I work long distance. I work in person. I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina. I do a variety of different classes. I have one coming up at the end of May. It's called Healing Trauma Through the Inner Child. And in June, I'm doing a class called Easy Relief for Anxiety, and another class called Simple Balances for Fight or Flight Stress Response.
Thank you so much, Karen, for joining us on the Adult Chair today. We sure appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Michelle, any final words of wisdom from you?
You
feel like we've answered all the questions?
Yeah, I do. I think, again, it's going back to that inner child and finding out what is hidden in that inner child. That is just, I think, when we can go there, we unlock so much.
Just beautiful. Well, on behalf of Karen Campion and Michelle Chalfant, I'm Pete Wright. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will catch you next week in The Adult Chair.